When you partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast Markets with Shawn Hackett. Shawn Hackett is with Hackett Financial out of Boca Raton, Florida. He's asked us to come on and talk about what's happening in the marketplace. So, Shawn, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. Getting a little more sinus cold, but I'm feeling a little better today. So, at least I have a voice. A couple of days ago, there was not much happening with that. So,
yeah, that would have been a hard time to have a podcast where we talk about things if you couldn't talk.
yeah,
I don't know sign language that well. I know there's a couple gestures that I know pretty well, but other than that, that's about it. So,
yeah,
there's a big weather change coming our way, Shawn. We're talking about a complete reversal here. You sent a report out earlier in the week about the MJO, and you lost me after that. But basically, the long and short of it is there's a stationary kind of, I don't know if front's the right word or what the right word to say there is, but moving in over some of these driest areas where they could see some significant rainfall over the next 5 to 10 days.
Yeah, the maiden Julian oscillation, the MJO, we talk about it all the time in our reports and talk about in your program a lot. It's an area of convection that kind of rotates around the tropics, and it's usually it keeps moving. It kind of just keeps moving. It's moved into phase a weak signal phase 2. And it's not moving at all. Like, it's stationary. It's very, very unusual pattern to have the MJO just get stuck, literally not moving at all for days or weeks, just sitting there. And it just so happens that phase 2 in the current teleconnections that we have with a weak El Nino and negative PDO and everything else that we have is an extremely wet signal for Central Eastern grain belt. And so when the MJO is not moving, when it sits stationary, it amplifies the atmosphere, meaning it creates an amplified jet stream. And what it really creates a kind of an atmospheric river pattern where moisture is being pumped until it moves. And so, the models have been wrong about predicting rains for about 2 months straight now, but I think they're right about this one. Sometimes they get it right. And a week ago, we warned about a big setback in grains. We suggested corn could potentially move down to 5.5 or lower based upon quarter end, month end, the USDA reports being bearish, and this change in the weather pattern. And that has played out. And it's possible we actually could have some significant localized flooding where you get these pockets of thunder showers that put 5 or 6 inches in certain areas where you've had bone dry ground gets just 5 or 6 inches of rain in a very short period of time. So obviously, rain makes grain. The weather market's over, and there'll be a lot of debate for a long time about the damage that's been done or not done, or it's irreversible or it is reversible. But at the end of the day, the market's going to trade rain makes grain, and they will only change that view until the weather pattern changes again. Which if we get this 10 to 14 day period of rain, it'd be too late to turn it around for corn pollination, meaning corn pollination will work out good. But, obviously soybean weather in August, we'd have to look at. but the market won't change their view about rain makes grain for corn until the USDA at some point in future USDA reports, whether it's the August, September, or October report, says, "Oh, the yields are way worse than we expected." So, that pretty much is putting a bearish slant. And so the way we're looking at it now, with these rains highly likely to now occur, grains are going to be under pressure into mid-late July, the way it seems to me. And at that point, I think the weather pattern could back off. I mean, the MGO is not likely going to sit in phase 2 stagnant for more than a few weeks, and they'll start to move again. So then once it moves again, the pattern will change again, and it's possible we go back to a dry pattern and maybe a hot pattern. And if the market gets excited that maybe August could be hot and dry, maybe this is the soybean could catch a wave, and then the corn market could have a bounce because of soybeans getting worried about weather. So I kind of feel mid-late July is our next shot at some kind of a turning point or relief rally or something of that nature. Until then, it's pretty awfully hard to get anything more than short-term technical bounces unless the USDA reports out tomorrow, which is the planting intentions report, or not intentions, the planting report of what the farmers actually planted, and the quarterly grain stocks report, which the USDA says what they think is actually sitting out there. Surprise to the bullish side, which I'm not anticipating. So,
all right, just so we can all learn something today. What's the difference between MJO phase 1 and MJO phase 2?
It's the location of the convection in the tropics. So it's just so phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's just where is this convection?
It's at? Okay,
where it's at.
Okay.
And certain phases mean certain things in different regions of the country. So phase 2 is wet for the U.S., but it's dry for somewhere else. It's not like it means it's. So you have to know the MJO, and it's not the same for every time of the year. So phase 2 being wet for the U.S. in July doesn't mean phase 2 is wet for the U.S. in December. It could be completely opposite. Different teleconnections based on the time of the year. But for July, which is what we care about, phase 2 is an extremely wet pattern. We showed a chart of weak phase 2 MJO moisture pattern, and it's the history of that shows a lot of. And normally it wouldn't be a problem if it goes in and out of phase 2. You get a little bit of rain, but it's stuck. It's a very unusual pattern. You rarely see the MGO get stuck in a phase like that, especially during the summertime. But that's the part of weather that makes any forecast not 100%. Meaning there's probabilities of outcomes, and sometimes you get these very unusual developments that take place that change the weather pattern, at least for a short while. In the case of corn, the next several weeks is a key period that if they get the kind of rains that the models are talking about, it's really a game changer. So,
right on. All right. So when you're looking at, I guess we've talked about this quite a bit, and up until now, you've been pretty well sure that we're going to see this drought. And you've actually talked about something similar to this happening, where, hey, you know what? It was hot and dry coming up till June, and then July we got the right amount of temperature and the right amount of water, and August turned off dry, and we ended up making close, not necessarily a trend line yield, but it was off maybe a bushel or two off the average. Do you feel like that's what we're seeing right now, Shawn?
If we get the kind of rains that like I said, you have to know when the models are right.
Right.
I badmouth the models a lot because they're wrong. They're so bad, but you also have to know when they're right. I think they're right, and I've been saying they're wrong for 2 months, but from my work, they're right. We're going to get a lot of rain where it counts. And that kind of rain, even if it turned off dry for the back half of July, won't matter. Like there's enough rain, pollination is going to be fine. So what does that mean? It means that a wet July from a warm June means that, crop potential is going to be okay, but not great. Meaning it's not going to be top end or above trend, but it doesn't mean it means the crop, the major crop problem like 2012 or 88, 83, 56, it's not possible now. Now it's just a question of, is it 172, is it 175, and of course, weather still matters, by the way. So this rain's going to come for the next 2 weeks, and it's going to do what it's going to do. But we still have a lot of weather for the back half, and then you got a grain fill, and there's a lot of things that determine what the final yield is. and we don't know what August weather is going to be, but I believe if this rain event delivers, a major crop problem is now virtually impossible to occur. We can have a crop, an okay crop, meaning below trend, but probably, I'm not expecting anything dramatically below trend. And in an environment where our demand picture is pretty weak, meaning the hog industry is under pressure, the dairy industry is under pressure. We don't have any cattle, we don't have any heads of cattle to feed. We're still dealing with African swine fever in China, and that still hasn't, that still is, going to, not going to endear them to want to buy feed until later in the years. We've talked about it on your show. Energy prices being under pressure, that means that we don't need a great crop. We just need an okay crop. And an okay crop means we're going to have enough corn, and we're going to have added extra supplies. Our ending stocks are going to go up, and that's it. So, that's the importance of, why June is a setup month. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Not the game. It's not the main show. The main show is July always. And by the way, I don't wish bad crops on any producer at all. I know I don't sit here cheerleading a major drought. I thought we had an elevated risk. We certainly had the arguably the second driest, and in some places the driest May, June since the Dust Bowl. But we are going to pull a rabbit out of the hat just in time in the main show to turn it around. And that sometimes happens, and that's what appears to be happening here. And I really do think the models are correct on this. So,
yeah. All right. So we're looking at some significant decrease in prices. I mean, we're talking.
Well, we've already, we were up there about 630,
yeah.
and we've already dropped $1. And so our recommendation from a week ago that we could see a significant setback, has already occurred. But, it certainly means there's more downside to come. Now, of course, I don't know what the USDA is going to say tomorrow. Casey, you know how this works. You could get short covering. You could get a short-term rally. We don't know what August weather is going to be. It doesn't mean it's straight down from here, but unless, August turns hot and dry to excite the soybean market, which then excites the corn market, the trend is going to be down, into the harvest window. And so a producer wants to be looking at selling any rally at all that comes along from here. Because remember, the El Nino pattern now for South America and for the US is next year, meaning the above trend line yield crops, the big crops, that's next year. So, unless there's a geopolitical situation that overrides weather factors, the trend is going to be down, and the major low is for summer, fall of 24. And so you want to be a seller of every rally that you get your hands on from here. So,
okay. All right, Shawn, that's that really is it's a complete 180 from what we've been talking about. And like you said, this is that perfect example of what you're talking about. If this does happen the way the models are predicting and what you're seeing out there, then this will be from a catastrophic failure to a ho-hum, an opportunity, I guess, where we're going to see not trend line like you talked about, but it's going to be a decent crop, and that's going to have
good enough in a weak demand environment. Good enough. Now, if you had, when we had a crop that was okay but not great a few years back when demand was ripping, it creates a huge bull market. So you have to know the environment that you're in. It's very, very important. And so the whole concept about weather and forecasting is there's no 100% forecast. There is probabilities of outcomes, and you can, and that's the most important thing. Is an elevated risk of a major drought and crop problem doesn't mean 100%. It means there's an elevated risk, and we absolutely had an elevated risk, but quite frankly, a pattern that I've not seen before occur in terms of this kind of a stalled phase 2 MJO. Meaning, if you look back at all past La Nina to El Nino, negative PDO kind of weather patterns that we've never seen this pattern develop, where we had a very wet July. It's always been a dry July, and then it turns wet in August, which has been, what we thought would probabilistically be the case. And Mother Nature decided to pull a fast one, and that's always a risk. And and that's what makes grain markets and ag markets and volatility what it is that weather can be projected from a probabilistic standpoint, but it can't be known for sure because there's always factors that we don't know that are at work. I mean, I have a lot of models that I use. I have a lot of statistics that I use, but I don't have all of them. And so somehow, this is something I will go back on and look at and see were there things that I could have noticed or seen ahead of time that would have shown such a dramatic turn of events in such a short period of time, so that the next time I see that set up, I'll know it's coming. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Well, you've talked about weather volatility moving into this, lower sunspot phases and those kind of things, and we're seeing that. We saw it all winter. We saw it, and we're starting to see it all summer here. So it's what you talked about is kind of coming true.
So if someone asked me now, what? So Shawn, if this stagnant MJO pattern were to persist, I could foresee. I'm not forecasting this because I don't, but I could foresee the possibility of flooding being a market mover later in the month, meaning the market's going to trade rain in the mid-July. But let's just say that this MJO stays stuck, and this atmospheric river, like we saw in California over the winter, that the atmospheric river just didn't stop. Let's just say that this MJO gets stuck, and we keep seeing this, inches and inches and inches over arid, dry soil. That's not really actually good. If you pour 5 inches of rain plus over arid soil and it doesn't stop, I mean, there's the potential later on in the month that too much rain could turn out to be a bad thing, and that insult to injury if it doesn't pull back. I'm not saying that's going to occur, but right now with the heavy rains that I see coming, so long as it's a 10 to 14 day pulse and they pull back, I don't think flooding is going to be a major issue. But if they were to continue to do that for another few weeks, then it could become a problem where you have washed out soils and flooded out areas at a time that the crop was already under stress from drought. That actually wouldn't be a good thing. Way too early to make that determination, Casey. But in the back of my mind, I'm always trying to think ahead of what could be. But that's something that we're going to be looking for to see if this is a pattern that's more persistent beyond the next 10 to 14 days. So
right on. Okay. All right, man. Good stuff as usual, Shawn. This is one of those market movers customers need to be prepared for and understand what their direction looks like and what their plan is going to be moving forward. So if folks want to reach out to you, Shawn, and get more information about what you're doing at Hackett Financial, what's the best way to do that?
We have a Twitter page at Faradix11. We have a LinkedIn page. We also have a website, Hackett, Hackett, advisors.com. From time to time, we put on our weather cycles and statistics that allow us to make some of these long-term projections of what the risks are and how we go about price forecasting, see if what we do might be of value to your listeners.
Well, Shawn, I appreciate you being on the podcast, man. Have a happy 4th of July, and we'll talk again next week.
Sounds good, Casey. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Right on. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. Go to LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast and go to see the YouTube version of this over on, obviously, YouTube at the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel. Go to Moving Iron LLC for everything Moving Iron related and get all the information for the Moving Iron Summit coming up here in Nashville, Tennessee, September 11th through the 13th. Take advantage of that $50 discount from the folks at Axon when you sign up and get that registration fee knocked down there a little bit. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Shawn Hackett. Smooth Smart, folks. Out.
Moving iron in the 21st century.